We are so happy to bring in our next and final group of people to talk about kind of, where the workforce belongs in all of this. And frankly, a lot of workers are not only confined to their own, areas, but they're losing ground. And so we have three fantastic people with us. We have Lucilla Crosta, who's actually coming to us from Italy, who is the head and creator of Edulai. Ciao.
Hi. Hi everyone.
We also have my friend Ash from StartED, who's going to say his last name, because even to this day, after knowing him for as long as I have, I'm a really bad student, and I have not yet done that well. And Sam Caucci from 1huddle. And these are three fabulous innovators, entrepreneurs, technologists who are not only helping to connect learning to other learners and very interested in this entire space, but play a little bit more on the side of adult and career, which is critical, I know, for an awful lot of people out there. So Lucilla, welcome. Ash and Sam, great to have you. I kind of just want to jump in and maybe ask Lucilla to start by talking a little bit about, sort of how you see what you do working in today's environment. You guys were on the, our hearts go out to you with Italy being, so much touched by this across the country, and we're learning and we're rooting for you. So let me know what you think about kind of where you think this all connects now for us.
Yes, thanks very much, Jeannie, or also for not only for your invitation, but also for your words. I feel really privileged to be here today and to have the chance to share with you not only what I do, but also I can see to share common issue. So issues that are common all over the world. I've been listening to with lots of interest all your stories, all what you are doing in schools, in higher education, and I feel that the story is really the same here. So we are all struggling, we are all trying to rush to move our students in K-12 or in higher education into the online environment. We are all a bit unprepared, and we try to find solutions to help the teachers to learn how to use this technology to help our students. So I can see that everything is more or less the same. Today I am here with you talking more about the workforce. What we do here in Italy is to work with technology and used for helping adults for learning online and for developing specifically the so-called soft skills. So we work and we are focused very much on these soft skills. So let's say when I talk about soft skills, I refer to how, for example, we are able to work together, how we are able to solve a problem, to think, for example, critically, or to communicate in an effective way with each other. And all these things are actually getting more and more important, not only because usually these are key skills that employer would like to find in the people they hire, but also nowadays in the situation that we are currently living in, are getting even more and more important if we think that, for example, our students have been put, to learn and study online. Our workers work from home now. So how, for example, are they able now to work in a new environment where they have to respect deadlines, where they have to become more autonomous workers and learner, how they can be able to achieve tasks sometimes in isolation rather than in their work environment, in their traditional work environment. So we actually think that these skills are becoming even more important than before because of what is happening around us. And and also because if we think that the machine and technology is running so quickly, and perhaps in the future we'll be able to, let's say, perform some technical tasks much better than humans, we think that it's very difficult to think that the machine will be able to perform these soft skills much better than human in the near future. So that's actually what we do. So we focus very much our work on the development of technology that can help not only workers but also higher education students to develop these soft skills in preparation of the workplace, of their future job environment. Yeah.
Interrupt real quick. I imagine that one of the other challenges that I'd love you and then Sam and Ash to address too is, you know, the enormous number of, again, people who are now not working, people whose higher ed or, you know, sort of career trajectory has been stopped. So while we're talking about helping our younger students, right, learn, and how do we help people in the K-12 and even a little bit in the higher ed spectrum, there are people out there who I would think we want to be helping now to develop the skills so that when our world comes back, and it will come back.
Yeah, I hope so.
They're in a position to move into something. What can they be doing on their own and at home while they're confined to develop themselves?
Yeah, what we can offer at the moment is, for example, the access to our, we call Edulai Intelligent Library, which is basically a library where whoever accesses it can find hundreds of resources, of high quality selected resources for developing 7 or more soft skills. So people can create an account for free during the spring for us as well. So we offer this access to everyone who would like to use our material for learning, for, you know, developing these skills, and they can actually be recommended by our artificial intelligence engine learning material according with their level. So there might be someone who accesses the library who is at a basic level in leadership, for example. Somebody else who accesses the library who is an expert instead in critical thinking. And according with the level they have, the library recommend them targeted material for improving the skill and for getting to the next level.
Great,
so
that's really helpful. And
yeah,
that's access that, we'll make sure they have access to that. Let me bring in Sam now also to talk a little bit about that, and we'll kind of be having this conversation continue. Lucilla, Sam, so you are looking at also kind of how to monitor and sort of enhance and upskill workers while you are. Talk a little bit about what Huddle 1 does and how it kind of in that same field that Lucilla was just talking about.
Sure. So, you know, we're working pretty aggressively right now. As a business, our focus is making workforce training more accessible, more interactive, more engaging. We do that through mobile games. You know, I kind of say that my life over the last 3 weeks have been comprised of sort of 2 types of phone calls right now with founders and CEOs and executives that use our platform. One is, you know, there's a lot of executives out there who are sort of leaning in to what's happening. They're finding ways to move forward, even despite the difficult decisions they have to make. We do a lot of work with restaurants and hospitality brands. It's ugly, it's tough, and they're making tough decisions. And unfortunately, there's also a lot of businesses who are doing the opposite and are sort of leaning back and, you know, I don't think doing everything that they can be doing for their people right now, because to second your point, the curve will flatten. People will come back to work. And, you know, we try to emphasize to executives that when they show back up, they're going to remember how you treated them right now. And, now's the time to lead, and it's tough. There's no doubt about it. I think the unfortunate thing, and there've been a lot of really great conversation over the last 2 hours. I think, accessibility has been a major problem in workforce training. The frontline worker gets access to a fraction of what the C-level worker gets access to. We've been advocating for 2 years on how we need to make workforce training not just more accessible, i.e. meet them where they are on mobile, but also access more skill development across job functions. Because today I might be a security guard, but tomorrow I might be a bartender. And then the next day I might be in charge of catering. I think there are companies that are really struggling with, the decision that they've made to only allow workforce training in the back room on a tablet or a learning platform that is not accessible, outside of an IP address. So I think that businesses that are going to succeed coming out of this are the ones that we're already set up well, and the ones that respond right now. Last thing I'll say, we talk a lot about skill training, and I love what Lucilla said about, there's a lot of great content we need to be focusing on. But I also think now is a time to focus on culture. And we're seeing a lot of brands we work with use our platform to do something so simple like keep their people together. We use mobile games, some of the most popular games on our platform, and we've seen a 7x surge in the last 2 weeks, have been games like on their staff, games on their culture, games on their mission. It's not training, but it's interesting. And I think there needs to be a balance of that, that type of material in addition to, job readiness and some of the other topics that are important as well.
And before I bring in Ash, let me just ask you a question. So you and Lucilla are, again, you're looking at workforce, you're looking at soft skills that students need to be prepared, a little bit of different things, but in the same genre. What does this say to parents? Like, what do we say to parents of younger people? What can the high school age kids be doing, right? What can middle school kids be doing right now to be thinking strategically about how they engage while they've got some time on their hands in a world that's going to be very different when we all come out of this?
Sure, I'll go first. We work with a program here in Newark, New Jersey called the All-Star Project. It's an after-school development program for youth age, 15 to 17. And they're struggling right now because businesses are not going to be taking on their summer internships for these students. And, I had a call yesterday with a few of their, instructors. And I said, right now we need to be leaning into the type of training around how, future of work was coming. It's just been accelerated. And my short comment would be, I think this levels the playing field for younger workers. There's a lot of workers out there in businesses that have no idea how to operate remote, and they're trying to figure it out. And their workers are trying to figure it out. And I said to one of the directors, you're 15, 16, and 17-year-old that have to argue about not having experience. Well, the experience line just flattened. And I think there's major opportunity for young people to jump ahead right now while, everybody's trying to figure out how to operate remote in this moment. So a major opportunity.
Great point. Lucilla, what do you think of that?
Yeah, well, actually, I think yes, that what we are experiencing now, it's not one of our best moments. But as I said, it might be taken like a good opportunity in some ways. So also for K-12, but also for higher education students, not only learning how to use the technology, but going back again to soft skill, learn how to critically using the technology. So how, for example, some technology can be good, some technology can be, for example, not so good if used in some other ways. So in some ways, you can also develop soft skills among K-12 students when they are actually using the digital technology. So it's some kind of an opportunity in some ways. We also have a special space into our library devoted to the use of digital technologies that help people not only understand how the technology works, how some technology works, but how this technology can be used nowadays, for example, for communication purpose. So, for example, how to use in a more educational way social network, or how to use, you know, in a more effective way some other tool out there that our youngster use without any, for example, advice or that just use among themselves. So this is, of course, a difficult situation, but if we take this as a good opportunity, we will probably be able to take something very good out of it.
Something can come out of it. Ash Kaluarachchi, join us. Ash leads a phenomenal organization called StartED, which is an accelerator and an incubator to help grow new ed tech ideas. And so you come to this with a very broad perspective, also the head of New York Ed Tech Week with Jonathan Harbour, which is scheduled in early June for now in New York. Ash, you've not only heard this piece and dabble in the technology and the innovation, dabble in the issues around Korean workforce, but K-12 as well. Tell us what you're seeing as the promise and potential of technology where we are, and please feel free to sort of share some thoughts also on what you just heard.
Sure, absolutely. And Ginny, good to be here, and pleased to see everybody and some familiar faces. Again, this is Ash Kaluarachchi, Kalua like the liqueur, if anybody asks. And I'm calling in from New York, currently one of the most dangerous places to speak from. The point I want to make is that this pandemic has really impacted the way we work and learn rather asymmetrically. And I'm seeing that from what I hear across the board from education founders and investors who tend to be the folks I'm spending most of my time with at this point. And the symmetry seems to be more from the perspective of some companies seeing increased demand for their solutions, spikes that are in the 5 to 10x range of the usage of the solutions, like what Sam just mentioned he was experiencing around those soft skill solutions. And some companies are wondering what to do. And they don't know how to manage the next few months. I want to put that perspective in a frame in that the people who seem to have the benefit of users and customers coming to them are equally, I'd say, clueless about why that's happening, and the folks that also are not understanding how to deal with the current situation are also clueless. And the way to bridge that gap is really for the parents and educators of this world to connect with innovators and help understand how our world has changed, right? So now, as of the last 4 weeks, how we work and learn has changed significantly. And it's almost like hitting a reset button on the last 10, 20 years in terms of how solutions were created. Solutions were unfortunately created without parents, teachers, and students in that conversation, the majority of cases. And this is another chance we're getting for those voices of the most vulnerable people and the people that are affected by this situation to be heard. Now, the convenient part, and I also want to add some kind of actionable suggestions around how parents and educators can help their students find jobs in this time, and how they can leverage the tech community to actually make supplementary income and find jobs to do so. But it all starts with joining websites like usertesting.com and getting paid to have your voices heard. How you learn and work has changed, And there are venues online, there are tech organizations online that will take your voice and turn those into solutions if they're doing their job well. But there are resources to enable that conversation. StartED is another one that you can take part in to be a voice and connect with the innovators who are creating solutions. And in fact, don't rule out the fact that if you see a unique way of solving what is happening right now, you could be an innovator too. It's very easy these days in 2020, as Mike has put many times, to create an organization, substantially less cost and substantially less effort. So don't rule out the fact that while you are experiencing this happen to you, you could actually be in control of your own destiny and change how we learn and work at this time.
Ash, let me stay on that for a couple more minutes. I love the idea of like, we can use this opportunity to actually be entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's not only things like getting paid because you've tested something, but working in remote ways. You've also talked a little bit about, and I know we have examples of that, virtual internships and virtual jobs out there. So two questions: how do people find those things? And then also, how do people volunteer to help students? Are there companies and organizations? Do you have that, Sam? Do you have a Lucilla? Ash, who do you know, where people who do have some time, maybe their kids are grown, maybe they're not in the home anymore, can do something, whether paid or not, to help us get through this with an education lens?
I can dive in there with a quick suggestion. The advent of the micro internship, which was digitally enabled maybe a couple of years ago through organizations like Parker Dewey, for example, are probably one type of solution that parents can point their kids to and maybe even be involved themselves. But the micro internship is essentially taking the internship and breaking that into bite-sized chunks and enabling that online. And by the way, getting paid for it, right? There are tons of organizations like Parker Dewey, like Paragon One is another great one, that have these online internship experiences that allow a student or a parent to sign up and then work with the company for a finite duration and actually be paid. And then most importantly, be hired by those organizations once those internships are over. All of it online, right? I'll also mention that solutions that are around the EAT portfolio in what typically were used for students to essentially create a portfolio for applications to college now are being repurposed to create applications for work, right? So leveraging sites like trovid.com, for example, are great solutions for making sure that your experience is captured and digitally encased to make sure that you can put that in front of employers when the time comes. Currently, we've unfortunately had the most unprecedented number of unemployment claims in history. So if you've been watching the news, 6.6 million unemployment claims in a week. The highest previously ever experienced was 10 times less than that. So what we're experiencing is that a lot of people are going to be needing these types of micro internships and solutions to get back on track with the jobs that are required. And it's a good place to start because as Sam mentioned, that experience curve has currently flattened.
And it seems to me that while this may feel to some people who are struggling with students in their homes a little like maybe not as related, it is because if we don't figure out how we are going to upskill, reskill, and continue to advance workers or people going into work, let alone the students who may not be able to go back to college, who had their higher ed halted. How do we begin to deal with that? I'd love to just throw it up to all of you. How do we begin to deal with that more sort of globally? Are there policy issues? Are there issues relating to, is it just a matter of kind of jumping into conversations like this? I mean, there's no one, of course, the Labor Department is part of the big, $3 trillion or whatever it is, $2 trillion bill that's coming down the pipe. But is there more that should and could be done?
Well, if I can just put a comment there. What is happening here in Italy, for example, is that the government and companies also are making and paying more and more attention than before to this smart work approach. So to the fact that people can work from home and that they don't need to go to work every day in the same space altogether. So I know that things have been changed rapidly, and they may go back to normality, perhaps in some ways in some months, but in my view, things will never be as before. So when you try something new like home, like smart working, like this new approach to work and also to teach, you start to understand that there is something good in that, and that there is something you may want to use also after the crisis that can get things a little bit better in some ways for some cases. So what I can see here, for example, the Lombardy region has issued here a survey asking how we are experiencing smart working, how we are dealing with that, what do we think about that, and if this could be a good solution for the future. So workers who have lost their job, or who just don't have a job, may find this as a new opportunity in the future, together with the opportunity of accessing education. There is a wide variety, not only about what we offer, but there are, training and resources can be easily accessed online from home, from the internet. So I see this as a possibility in which a government, especially here in some ways, perhaps are thinking about. So this is more or less what I'm seeing.
Very good. And I also want to just mention too that, we had intended, and Lucilla, you're part of this, to have, and still are planning, a major EdTech US Italia Ed Innovation Festival, now scheduled for the end of September. And one of the people who's part of that, who was supposed to be joining us today, but he actually has to walk his wife, who's a nurse, to the hospital at night, and it's not a pleasant walk apparently. But as Michael McDonald, and he does a lot with AR and VR in getting people to learn. And reason I'm bringing that up is because there's not only a very, very substantial ed tech world there in Italia, in Italy, that you all can use to also grapple with some of these issues. But the connection, I think, about learning from K through career, for us to be able to see the experiences, when I think about all the museums who put lessons virtually online, when I think about the ability to have a conversation like this globally, StartED is global. Lucilla, you're working globally. We're all going through this across the world. And imagine if tools and services were helping not just our students, but our workers, our educators, our parents to connect across this transom, as we say. Ash, have you seen any hope for that? And talk a little bit about maybe what you see coming down the pike, and Sam, you as well, in that regard. I mean, we could be using this time at home to be entering new territories, right?
Certainly, and I'll go back to one of my initial comments around understanding how the world's changed. So if we spend our time currently understanding the needs of the people that we serve, this is actually a great time to check in and be human and be empathetic about what those changes are. And I think that whoever it is that we spend our time with on a daily basis, whether they be students, parents, educators, investors, entrepreneurs, all the stakeholders in this ecosystem, I think it's equally important to understand how the dynamics between those groups might potentially change as well. I'll I'll leave it at that, and maybe I'll ask Sam and Lucia to go as well.
Yeah, and Sam, I was going to say, talk a little bit about that, and I also want you to address like specifics about how we can be, you know, again, those of us who kind of are typically work remotely or have experience working remotely because we have people in lots of places. This isn't the same. So how do we transition into that? How do we make sort of our mindset more global as a result of all this?
Sure, and you know, one point, you know, you talked a few minutes ago about government's role in sort of this transition. You know, I think for a long time, certain labor rules that were very well intended restricted folks from access to job skills when they need it most. And I think we're seeing that today. You know, I've talked to a few municipalities in the last few days who job readiness programs have stopped because a lot of the cities have job readiness programs that are highly reliant on live instruction. And the folks who would typically access that live instruction don't have access to a laptop or a desktop from home. And I think that there's so much that's occurred. One of the things we have to learn as we come out of this is that I think we're entering, you know, we're not entering a world. A lot of the folks on this call understand this from, you know, the way we use technology. We need to make sure that access also includes allowing somebody, if they raise their hand and say they want to get better at something, to be able to do that, whether they're on the clock or off the clock. And, you know, we fought for the last few years with companies who, I always joke, we're as a mobile workforce tool, and Ash knows this, we've had to build more features to stop participation because HR teams have said, we love it, but is there any way we can turn it off when they're not here? And, you know, they're the ones we're talking to right now that are saying, hey, we want to turn that on. So, you know, we have to learn from that. I think, you know, globally, you know, to your point, we have to, there's just so much opportunity to connect people today across borders with job skills, and it has to start with everybody on a call like this, like thinking about ways to, we're moving into a world where potentially we're going to see 30+% unemployment here in the US. There's more people that aren't responding to an HR person anymore than ever before. And there's a massive opportunity to work bottom up in our workforce to create the next what the requirements are for the job of tomorrow. And I just think that that's where we should be thinking from a technology perspective. The workers have control right now, and it's our opportunity to enable and empower them.
And it's interesting because, you know, prior to this pandemic, so sad, we had 7 million jobs in the US we couldn't fill. I know I was talking to Lucilla about issues in Italy about getting people to take particular jobs that were available and not having enough people to do certain things. Texas Central Railroad need to hire 10,000 people to build a high-speed rail. And now those 7 million jobs are what? Negative 7 million? You know, what's that look like? Does that mean everyone's going to need not just to reskill, but what does it mean? Is it reskill? Is it new skill? Is it just a new world that they're going to have to adapt to?
And I would probably say it's all of the above. We have to invest in technologies that move as fast as work moves. And I think that's the problem with, there's an infrastructure problem with a lot of business models. Again, just an observation, we've had at least 30 to 40% of our direct points of contact, which is generally the learning and development or HR job function in companies, be furloughed. So, you know, our customer care team doesn't know who to talk to in some companies, but we still see participation happening and users using, and we're keeping platforms live to try to help people and worrying about everything else and billing later. But, you know, this top-down model of only a few folks inside of the enterprise that can choose what content people have access to, it's time has come. It's been long overdue, and I think this is an opportunity for us to learn and move forward.
So Sam, can people connect with you through Huddle One and your website? What's the best way if they want to engage with Huddle One? And then I kind of want to ask a final question of everybody. What's your advice for parents and teachers going through this from sort of the K through higher ed perspective? What would you have them be doing? How would you suggest that they deal with, educate or not, their kids? You know what I mean? Is remote learning something they should be doing? And how can we best help them do that?
Yeah.
It's like you asked that question, and my daughter started crying. I don't know if she heard it. Sorry to cut you off, Lucilla. I was just going to say we'll post something in the Q&A for how to connect with us with our platform. We're doing a lot with, we've sort of opened it up like everybody else on this call has been doing great work right now to do that. So we'll make that available.
I'll perhaps comment there, Ginny, as well. Rather than going to kind of overall summary, since it is a complex question, I'll point to a resource. The tech community came together and created some resources, both for teachers and parents, separately at schoolclosures.org. And it's a great set of tools that harken back to what I mentioned around finding supplementary income, finding new jobs, how do you deal with creating a schedule for your kids at home, and then some free tools attached to each of those strategies. So schoolclosures.org is a great one to start with.
That's great. Lucilla, last word, and then we're going to bring our friend Michael Moe back in.
Yes, my last thought, for teachers and for parents who are at home with the kids, teaching them and perhaps helping them moving in the future to higher education is, you have a great opportunity now to spend lots of time with them. You teach them to how to be as a person, not just to learn some content and that's it, because there is a big difference, about what we learn and how you teach them, how you pass your value to them now in this difficult moment. Try to build a good relationship with them, because if your kids would be adults who will be able to well relate with each other and with future and the future with other people, they will have the right skills, the skills that entrepreneurs are looking for in people, not just skills like being able to perform a task, but being able to build a relationship with other people as a person. So this is a really great opportunity for you as a parent to spend time with them and to give them this life lesson.
I love that. It's about resilience. It's about difficulty. It's about the overcoming challenges. Yes. And it's about wanting to get to know everyone again. And we've been so go, go, go. This does give us that opportunity to learn in new and different ways as well. Thanks,
Ginny, for translating this to me in a good American.
To an Italian to end us in a great way. Thank you to this great panel. Michael Moe, you've been listening. Do you think we hit the points? And what else do people out there need to know? And where do we go from here?
Well, first of all, I think just having the opportunity to have this robust discussion is incredibly helpful, and thank you for again hosting it. I would say something that struck me just listening, the title of this webinar is Flattening the Curve, and I think one of the key takeaways is, yes, we have to flatten the curve for this disease and how we are able to go forward, but the world is being flattened in a positive way in terms of the access to resources and information and ideas and ways to accelerate learning, accelerate techniques and tools to be, to be successful, to go into this brave new world, this new frontier. I mean, we're in this in a big community, and that's exciting. Flattening organizations, so it's not this top-down totem pole, and one or two people cut wreck everything. It's flattening, and ideas come from a lot of different places. Opportunities to accelerate are important. And I guess the last thing I would say is the fact that, I mean, change was here before this all happened. I think number of people said this either directly or implied it, which is this change has just been compressed or accelerated. And so whether that's the acceleration to digital learning, whether that's the acceleration of the new, jobs in the new economy, I mean, this is all taking place just a lot faster than, and it was happening fast before. Well, it's just been accelerating when it's here today. So I like to say in this innovation economy that we're in, change is the constant thing, seeing change happen faster and faster. New McDonald has a startup and it's about EIEIO. It's entrepreneurship, innovation, education, impact, and opportunity. That's where the world's going. I think this conversation hopefully is the first of an ongoing dialogue. I think this kind of episodic getting together and sharing gets replaced from this kind of stream, if you will, of connectivity, community, and collaboration. So again, I think this was a tremendous opportunity today, and look forward to continue the conversation in the future. But I thought it was terrific. So that's sort of my quick commentary.
I really appreciate that, Michael. And Michael Masanti, I'm going to let you end it for us, but I'll just say that in addition to what you just shared with us, what I'm taking away also is this notion of flattening and community requires information. And you often talk about how we need to remove the friction. And that took me a long time to understand what that means. But essentially, there's so much information out there. There's infobesity, you like to say. Yeah. And to overcome, like, where do I go for this information? Well, I'm sitting here thinking, because we put up this great page, Countering COVID, on our website, because we're tracking stuff, because we're tweeting it, that millions of people are seeing it. And they're not, because there's so much. And to be able to find it is difficult. And what I'm taking away from the folks who are here today, who are participating, asking, is we have to do more to push that information out. Now that the world is flat again, if you will, it should be easier and it's more in demand. And so thoughts that you have about how we can do that together, we should definitely explore in the future.
Yeah, well, I think it just, the world's awash in information. What we need is insight. And I think insight is derived by helping filter a lot of this information into specific thoughts and action and wisdom. And I think we have an opportunity to do that. And again, today I think is progress forward.
Listen, I want to thank everyone, first of all, on our panel. Michael, thank you to all of our panels, to all of our speakers. You guys were incredible. I hope we're getting some great comments. I hope we've been able to at least provide some basic solutions, some basic resources to you. We know that there's a lot of information out there. We're going to do our best to get you answers. Just a brief message out there to everybody on the front lines, healthcare workers, doctors, everybody who's doing those really tough jobs right now. We are with you. Let's try to stay positive, even in the midst of all of this. And let's ensure that all of our kids, everyone who wants access to something that's going to move them to the next level, education-wise, experience-wise, job-wise, if we all hang together, if we all do it together, it will happen. And listen, thank you for joining us today. We will, this has been taped and recorded. We will make it available on the website.